So today's topic is engaging people living with dementia. And that can be challenging at the best of times with changes in abilities and the apathy that can come with the disease. But if we throw in a winter storm or a global pandemic, we suddenly find ourselves with a lot more leisure time, even those of us who may be retired. We don't even have doctor's appointments to go to anymore. Um, Activities are very important for all of us at any time in our lives. They allow us to express ourselves through different means. They fulfill the need for cognitive, social, physical, and emotional stimulation, which we also know are important for our brain health. Activities provide a sense of accomplishment, a sense of being able to contribute, which is important for all of us, but even more so for many people living with dementia. One of my favorite quotes is that activity's purpose is not just to kill time, but to make time live. Not just to keep a person occupied, but to keep them refreshed. Not just to offer an escape from life, but to provide a discovery of life. So when our regular routines have been challenged as a result of COVID-19, for example, engagement activities can become a rewarding and important part of your daily routine, the new normal that we're experiencing right now. So we put together a list of creative online and offline ideas to keep you and your person with dementia involved and connected during this time. Many of these can be used throughout most stages of the dementia. Just remember to adjust activities as the disease progresses, as abilities change. You might need to adjust daily. You might need to do one thing one day and something different another day. You know your person best. You're the best judge of where they are, and they can tell you a lot of times. Remember to involve the person with dementia as their abilities permit. At the beginning of the journey, they could be an active and engaged participant in the whole process, brainstorming, planning, and completing the activity, not just in completing the activity itself. As the disease progresses, the person supporting the person with dementia may need to take on a bigger role. However, make sure to involve the person with dementia as much as they want, as their abilities allow. So some of the online options, and we did put out an article on our website a couple of weeks ago, and I'll mention that from time to time as we go through here. And at the end, I'll show you how to find that article. There's lots of great links there. Online jigsaw puzzles are a wonderful option. There's lots of good websites that let you find pictures to match your interests and ability. You can even create your own puzzles from your own photos. Some sites will let you choose how many pieces your puzzle can be. You could have a 300-piece puzzle, you could have a 20-piece puzzle. Just depends on what you're looking for, the ability, the interest, how long you want to spend on it. Tablets and computers would be the best for this. Phones could probably be a little small. This might be a good option if you've already gone through all of the puzzles you already have in your home. Ordering more puzzles online is also another option. Walmart, Amazon, all have a good selection. Try looking for the larger piece puzzles. They tend to be easier for older hands that may have lost some dexterity. They also tend to be thicker and a better quality when you're looking for a puzzle. Coloring websites, they're another great option. There are ones that will let you color pictures online by clicking on the screen. If you're using a tablet, you can touch. And there's also websites that will let you download and print pages to color. And there's so many options now, from small, intricate pictures for those that still have great eyesight and fine motor skills, to larger pictures with bigger spaces to color in for those who may not. There are also plenty of different themes, so you can find something for anybody's interests. If you'd like to give this a try, but you maybe don't have a printer or the ability to print them out, maybe you don't have markers or colored pencils at home anymore, Most grocery stores also sell adult coloring books, and the supplies, color pencils, markers that you might need to do this. And you could add it to your online order if that's how you're doing your groceries, or pick it up the next time you happen to be out to stock up. YouTube videos are a wonderful pastime. You can search up funny animal videos, classic old TV shows like Beverly Hills, MASH, I Dream of Jeannie, favorite musical performers, or even just specific songs. Music is such an important part of our lives. Music can make us feel happy. It can lift our spirits. It can console us when we're feeling down. Everyone has music that resonates with them. A song you hear that brings back memories, that evokes happy feelings, that reminds you of somebody. We've seen amazing reports of the profound effect that music can have on people living with dementia. A couple of options that I've just recently heard about. The Big Sing Halifax is live on Facebook every couple of weeks, singing together. As well, the Alzheimer's Society in the UK has a program they call Singing for the Brain. And I'll share the link for that at the end of the website, or at the end of the presentation, sorry. Online games. So you can look for something that matches your person's interests and abilities. There are many great card games like solitaire, Uno, poker. There are other games such as dominoes, backgammon, mahjong. If you've never played a particular game before, it might be a good time to learn it, as long as it doesn't cause frustration for you or your person with dementia. Another nice option is video calls to speak with family and friends. FaceTime is a good option if you have Apple products on both ends. Facebook Messenger is a good one if you're familiar with that. Google Duo, if you have Android products, that's already downloaded on all of your Android products. And at the Alzheimer's Society, we do have some resources that we can share with you to walk people through how to access these. So if you're interested, give us a call at our info line. That number will be provided at the end of the presentation as well. Virtual travel. Right now, we can't get out of our own homes. We're not encouraged to leave our own communities. And there are a lot of suggestions in that article that you can check out. And I'll give you a few of them that are here, talk about a few of them here. You can do an interactive tour of national parks in the United States. You can stroll the Great Wall of China. You can check out pandas on the Panda Cam at the Atlanta Zoo. You can choose from the Monterey Bay Aquarium, their live cams. You can choose a bunch of different options. One of them is otters, which is always fun. You can visit the Galapagos Islands on a YouTube video. You can visit the world's largest cave in Vietnam with an interactive tour. You can tour the Vatican. You can tour museums. There's so many museums right now that are offering interactive tours. African safaris are live streaming their tours, and they will talk about what they see in the moment as they see it. Theaters are showing live performances. I actually just learned today that Andrew Lloyd Webber streams a new musical free each week, and that the National Theatre in London has free productions each week as well. They're actually doing the 12th night this evening. You can find more options that might be more to your taste. Just try Googling free concert streams or free live events. Online exercise classes are another option. You may have been attending a regular exercise class before this all happened and aren't able to do that now. And most of us are finding it a little challenging to stay active in our own homes. If you were a regular attendee at a fitness class, which isn't there for you right now, a lot of places will have links to classes that you can participate in at home, whether it's on their Facebook site or their YouTube or their website. The Sackville Sports Stadium, I know, has some yoga classes. There's quite a few options. So contact where you are going. They may have some options or may know of some places that you can check out. So these are a lot of the online options. I have a few more that we'll talk about in a little bit. It's not for everybody, but don't be afraid to ask the younger folks in your life for a little help with the technology part of the examples I've listed here. But if technology really isn't accessible for you, though you've got this far, so we're glad for that, or perhaps it doesn't hold the attention of your person living with dementia, we do have some other options. In addition to the board games or card games, jigsaw puzzles that you might already be doing, now's a great time to dig out those old hobbies and give them another go. Keep in mind, you might have to adapt an old favorite because of a change in ability, or you might have to break it down into smaller steps. Some other offline ways to stay engaged at home are sorting and organizing activities. We're always saying, oh, I don't have enough time to get to that junk drawer, but now's a great time to do some of those things. These may or may not be appropriate for your person living with dementia. You know them best, so use your judgment and just have fun and experiment. So you could sort playing cards by suit or by number. You could try reorganizing a utensil drawer or maybe a junk drawer. Going out to the garage and sorting odds and ends might be a little overwhelming for some, but maybe bringing a box of some of those items back into the kitchen table and sorting out nuts and bolts or nails and screws into smaller containers might be more manageable. You could polish the silverware. You could try unraveling a wool sweater for recycling and then balling it back up into a ball of yarn. You could try sorting clothes or laundry, fabric scraps, things you have in your craft drawer by size, by fabric, by color, by purpose. Let's see. Untying knots, a dozen sailor's knots, for example. But that might be not in your skill set yet. So maybe you want to learn how to tie knots to pass the time. Cutting squares from old cloth, clothes you have around, towels, and you can make a patchwork quilt or a rug. So these are just a few examples that may or may not be suitable or of interest to you and your person with dementia. A little while ago, I made t-shirt yarn cut from old t-shirts, and my mother-in-law's hands don't work as well as anymore. She doesn't use scissors very well. But part of that process is stretching the material and then balling it up. So she did that. In times of stress and unease, spiritual activities can bring a real sense of comfort and peace and calm. Not having our regular routines, hearing things on the news can be upsetting for a lot of us. And it can be worse for people who need that sense of order and predictability to feel safe and secure. Sacred music is one thing that can bring a lot of comfort, whether it's singing it or playing recordings of favorite hymns, favorite music. YouTube is a great source for a variety of not only music, but church services and things like that. Reading out loud to yourself or in your head are another way. Reading devotionals or books of faith. Listening to services on the TV, on the radio, online. Many church services and places of worship are recording or sharing services live using YouTube or Facebook. It's a great way to connect with your community. Again, if this is something you'd like to try, but you aren't really techie, reach out to someone younger in your life, someone who's a little more skilled with that, or connect with your church, with your community group, with who would provide those services and see what they suggest and how they're sharing. You could start or continue a journaling practice and maybe using the theme gratitude. A lot of people think journaling has to be very rigid. Journaling at a specific time every day about a specific topic, but it's your journal. It can be much more flexible than that. Journal as often as you want about whatever you want. Maybe you don't pick it up for 3 days or 3 weeks. It can be lists, it can be paragraphs, it can be drawings, doodles, it can be poetry. Whatever feels right for you, it's your journal. Do whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable with, how often you want to. Another way to calm an anxious mind and to bring us back to the present is guided meditation. So there's apps and websites that you can use for that, such as Headspace, Calm, Breathe. Headspace has a great how to meditate for complete beginners. There's a free 10-day course that teaches you how to meditate, as well as you can choose the length of time, so you don't have to do it for 20 minutes the first day. You start out with 2 or 3 minutes, and you don't have to do it every day. If you don't get back to it for 2 or 3 days, session 2 is still waiting there for you to take. And you can go back and do 1 and 2 again, instead of simply just doing 1 to 10. Another great way to calm an anxious mind and for all of us to feel better is getting out in nature. Bundle up right now and just sit outside and let the sun shine on your face. Maybe it's starting some seeds inside, dreaming about what your garden is going to look like this summer. Find a private trail close to home, because we're not encouraged to go too far right now. Get out and take a walk, or just sit. Reminiscing through old photo albums, working on a crossword puzzle together by asking the clues out loud, talking about the trivia questions from that old board game. You don't need to play it. You can just talk about all the interesting facts that are shared. Folding paper airplanes and seeing how far the different types will go across your living room. Maybe it's simple origami shapes. Learn a new skill like that. These are all great ways to stay engaged when we can't get out. So I have a few tips to set yourself up for success. These may or may not apply to your person living with dementia. You know them best, but this is just something to consider and maybe give a try. So avoid unnecessary distractions, such as the TV on in the background or the radio. Music may be fine, but a talk show on the radio might be too much when you're trying to have a conversation. Slow down, take your time, and go at the right pace for your person living with dementia. You might need to break it down into small, manageable steps if that's what they need. Keep in mind that not everybody needs to be busy all the time. Now, don't get me wrong. But some people need a chance to rest and just look out the window. You have to figure out for yourself and your person living with dementia that happy spot between overstimulation and understimulation. Some people living with dementia can focus and work on an activity alone with no direction from you or very little. Others may need you there with them the entire time. Focus on the process, not the final outcome. Remember, the goal here is to enjoy the activity, to pass the time, to connect, not to check items off a list. Though completing tasks does bring a great sense of accomplishment for a lot of us. And most importantly, enjoy the moment. We have a unique opportunity right now to slow down and appreciate things, the different things in our lives that we're sometimes too busy to. during normal times. So make the most of this right now. Meaningful activities are anything that you or your person living with dementia finds meaningful. They can be physical, such as taking a walk or dancing in the kitchen. They can be work-related, making notes, organizing papers, fixing things. They can be social, having a coffee, playing cards or games. Meaningful activities can be spiritual, singing, gardening. Meaningful activities can be related to mealtimes, cooking and baking, if you enjoy that. They can be creative, painting, drawing, writing, playing an instrument. They can be chores, like dusting, doing the laundry, ironing. That's definitely not for me, but for some people, they find a great deal of meaning from that. Now, if you ask me to water plants, tend to the plants, pick off the dead heads, that is definitely something I find meaningful. So these suggestions are just the tip of the iceberg. A wise woman told me that we need to be kind and gentle to ourselves during these unprecedented days. And I think that applies not only to this global pandemic, but to the journey with dementia. So enjoy yourselves, be creative, and most importantly, have fun. So I have a few resources here that I mentioned. These are all available, most of these are available in the article that we posted a couple of weeks ago. And the next slide I will show you how to find that. So there's some sites here for online jigsaw puzzles, there's coloring websites, there's the couple of sites for meditation, simple origami shapes and paper planes. And the one that isn't in the website or on our website in the article is the Alzheimer's Society in the UK, and they do singing for the brain. So that's something you might want to check out. It is on Facebook. If you don't have time to write any of these down, just give us a call at the info line and we can share those with you. All right, so to find the article, because there's links to all of the travel websites that I mentioned, you can go to our website, alzheimer.ca/en/ns, head over to our news and events page, and you can click on that link, and that will bring you to this page right here. And down here at the bottom, you can go to the Alzheimer's Society of Nova Scotia blog, and it's been a couple of weeks now, so on the left-hand side, it'll pop up with a few titles, and just look for Keeping People Living with Dementia Engaged During COVID-19. We do have a lot of other great articles there, and feel free to have a look at those, but that's how you get to this one in particular. So that's the end of my presentation. We're now going to move on to the questions and answers. I'll leave this up for just another couple of seconds if you need to jot down the number to call us to get any of those resources I mentioned. You can get us at 1-800-611-6345. Right now you will have to leave a message and one of us will get back to you.
Thank you so much, Beth. And actually, before we go into the question and answer, what we'd like to do at this moment is take 2 minutes to reflect on those Nova Scotians that we lost this past weekend. Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. So we're going to continue on now with the question and answer portion of the presentation. So Beth, you shared a lot of really great ideas. And I think one of the things that you mentioned in the presentation, Beth, was the fact that it's really important to choose something that you really enjoy doing. You had mentioned about plants, and one of the things that you knew you would really love doing is going around and, taking all the flowers off of the plants just to make sure that they had that regrowth, the opportunity to kind of regrow again, I guess you could say. So one of the questions actually that came through the chat is, what if my mom says no to all of the suggestions that I may have given her? What would you recommend?
So for some people, the changes in their brain may make it really hard to make a decision. So it's just easier to say no than to just to pick an option. So what you might have to do is just suggest something instead of saying, do you want to play cards? Do you want to call your son? And suggest it. Let's play cards. Let's sit down and flip through the old photograph album. And for a lot of people, that's a much easier way to go about it than having to make that choice and options.
Yeah, and I think that's really true. That's a really important point to make, is that too much choice can be overwhelming, right? And so the activities that you decide to use are, it's going to be something that they enjoy, and then it's something that's not going to be too complicated. And I guess C, is the fact that, yeah, you don't want to give 5 different choices, because it's so much easier for a person to say no to all of those 5, because it's just too much choice there. Yeah.
It can be overwhelming. Choice is a wonderful thing. So it's figuring out what appropriate choice is for your person with dementia. Exactly. It might be giving 1 or 2 options instead of just saying, what would you like to do today? It might be saying, would you like to play cards, or would you like to sit down and have a cup of tea? Or it might be just saying, let's have a cup of tea.
Excellent. So I have another question here. So how can I get my dad more engaged on the phone? What are some suggestions that you might have?
Yeah, phones are really tricky. We are interacting with something we can't see. We hear this voice, but we don't see the person. So it can be a little hard for a brain that's changing to capture that. If you have the ability, a FaceTime or video chat might be a good option, because then you can see who you're talking to, and then you get a little more engaged. Also thinking about, how involved has Dad been all his life on the phone? Was he one to talk for hours, or was he one to say a few words and then that's it? So keeping in mind, your dad is still your dad. Your person with dementia is still the person that they've always been. And those likes and dislikes may change a little bit, just as they do for all of us as we get older. But if he was never one to talk on the phone, that might not be the best option for you guys right now. Maybe it's writing letters. Maybe he enjoys writing letters. Maybe you can write to him and have him write back.
I think that's a great idea, actually, because I know myself, the only letters I think I get in the mail are bills. That's one of those arts, I think, and some people are really good at writing letters. And so to be able to receive even a birthday card in the mail, like you said, yeah, it's checking in with your family member with dementia. So I know my dad didn't like speaking on the phone too, so that probably wouldn't necessarily be my first choice, but I love the option of having those letters, right? And you can get all kinds of different stationery. So another thing, that's another activity, is, bringing out a variety of different types of stationery so that you can kind of work through that together and create and scrapbooking, and so those sorts of things too, which is really kind of cool. Great idea. I
Yeah.
love that. Love the letter writing. Um, so when people are doing these different activities, what would you suggest would be sort of a good time limit? Like, is there any such thing as too much time being spent on one activity? What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
It really depends again on your person. If you know one person with dementia, you know one person with dementia. And someone could spend an hour doing a puzzle and still want to sit there and find more pieces. Whereas other people get frustrated or a little antsy after a few minutes. So it really is different for every individual. If you notice your person is getting a little fidgety, they're not as engaged, they're not as looking like there is an active participant, then it may be time to move on to a different activity. And it also depends on the type of day they're having, or maybe the time of day. If they have great mornings, they may be able to stay engaged longer in an activity in the morning than they may in the evening when they're not as sharp or they may be more tired. So it's just judging that. So after an active activity, you might want to move on to something more quiet, flipping through a magazine, just sitting with a cup of tea and looking out the window. But again, you know your person best, and experiment a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's really important too, is when the best time of day would be for that person to initiate an activity. So for instance, you're not necessarily going to initiate something at 5 o'clock in the evening, right? Because people get tired, their brain is working a little bit harder. So come 5 o'clock in the evening, maybe that's not the best time. So to initiate that. And one of the other questions actually that kind of flows quite nicely into what you just spoke about is, what do I do if dad does happen to get frustrated with the activity that I choose? And
Best thing to do would be to move on, and try something else. You can also have take a moment and think, am I expecting too much all at once? Is it a brand new activity and maybe he doesn't understand and I need to make the steps smaller, break it down into more manageable pieces? Maybe it's that it's not a great time of day.
yeah.
Maybe we're trying to learn something new in the evening, and maybe we should look at doing that in the morning if he's a morning person, or maybe at lunchtime if he has a great middle of the day. And sometimes you need to just move on, try something else. It's not a good fit.
So looking for something that's the right fit, looking at something that occurs at the right time of the day, and knowing if he starts to get bored or distracted, maybe try something a little bit, something different, or maybe something calming, something soothing, like you said, have a cup of tea, that sort of thing. Excellent. Okay,
Exactly.
let's see what other questions we have here. Let's see. Oh, okay. I've actually participated in this one myself. So my mom doesn't understand why she can't go shopping now during COVID. Any
Ah,
suggestions?
that's a good one. So we have lots of leisure activities that involve other people. One of them is shopping. And we're not encouraged to do that frequently right now. They're asking one person to go, and especially if you're older or your immune system isn't great, they're asking you to stay home for your own safety. One way to still engage in that leisure activity of shopping would be trying shopping online. Maybe it's sitting down with your mom, or talking about it over a video chat if you don't live with your mom or aren't able to visit right now, and picking out things from online stores. Maybe it's sitting down and meal planning together and putting those things in the shopping cart. You're on the phone, or she's on the phone, and you're on the website clicking the superstore basket and adding those things that she's going to want for the meals next time. Maybe it's segueing into, oh, do you remember that chocolate cake you made for the dad's last birthday? How delicious that was. And talking more about what you would buy instead of actually going shopping right now.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny because when I had done it just personally for myself, the online shopping, I was thinking to myself, gosh, you know what, this is pretty good, you know, and thinking about, because you actually visually see, so you have the visual cue, you see a bag of flour and yeast. For those of you trying to find yeast these days, it's very difficult. I think we all want to get that comfort food, so everybody's making bread, which is kind of interesting, but it also helps us to reminisce, right? Like looking at those items and thinking, oh, you know what, remember when you used to make these cookies, those ginger cookies? They were so good. And so it sure, you're doing shopping, but you are also sort of reminiscing and thinking of other things as well, right? Like bringing those into the forefront. So I just have a comment here in the chat. It says, may I suggest, oh, okay, so this is getting back again to if somebody doesn't like talking on the phone, the person has suggested dropping a card in the mail just to say, I'm thinking of you, right? If anybody else has any other question, please remember to send it in the chat, or if there's any comments, we can share those online here as well. So I have another question here. Is there any specific type of music that you would recommend for people?
It really depends on the type of person. My husband is not going to enjoy opera, but he does love so many other types of music. It depends on the mood. Are you dancing in the kitchen to old polkas, or are you sitting on a Sunday enjoying more spiritual music? So it really depends on what people like, their tastes, and what they're looking for in that moment, the purpose of the music, what sort of scene you're trying to set, how you're trying to make people feel. And again, it really depends on the person's tastes.
I think that's really key, isn't it? You know, we keep reiterating, it's really important to know the interests of the individual, right? Your family member, and you have an advantage because you know them the best, right? And being able to suggest some of those things. So I have another one here as well around, you know, puzzles actually. Is there any online site that you could recommend specifically for puzzles?
So there are a couple that I had in that last slide. And those two are both in the website. But if you just Google online puzzles, you will come up with a variety of options. And it's just figuring out what works best with your device, whether it's a computer, whether it's an iPad or a tablet, just figuring out what works best for your devices. But there are two in the article.
Okay, excellent. And I know that you've had instructions there, Beth, in the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
So when we have folks that are calling into InfoLine, one of the sites that I often recommend as well is CDS Boutique. It's a Canadian site as well. So it was formerly known as Concepts de Sablier. So they were a really good resource in looking for puzzles. And there may be actually some local artists as well that have created puzzles based on landscapes, local landscapes. So, you know, we have a tendency to think sometimes, you know, these puzzles, they have to be huge, but that may be too much and too complex.
Yeah.
But if it's, you know, a type of puzzle that somebody, if they were, you know, an avid car person, like they loved antique cars, that sort of thing, you might be able to connect with somebody locally, actually.
Or they grew up on a farm, or they love animals, flowers. There's so many options now, and CDS Boutique is a great one to order from. They have good quality puzzles. They have adult theme puzzles in smaller pieces. They're smaller, not smaller pieces, but smaller amounts of pieces. So they have 30 or 35 piece puzzles instead of 300. And they're adult theme. They're not the princess puzzles you might find at Walmart.
Yeah.
But if you enjoy doing princess puzzles, by all means, do princess puzzles.
Do the princess puzzles, most definitely. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I don't think oh, actually I do have one other question, and it was from an individual wondering again, will they be able to have access to all of the resources that you discussed today in your presentation?
Yes, so most of them are available on our website. So if you go to the news and events page and down in the left-hand corner, there is the Alzheimer's blog. So you can find that article there. As well, if that's not the route you want to take, you can give us a call at the info line and we can walk you through those resources. Will all be available to our info line staff to share with you.
Okay. Okay, very good. Excellent. Okay, so I guess what we're going to do is we'll wrap up today. We wanted to thank you all for taking the time to listen to some of Beth's suggestions on activities. We learned quite a bit. So there's some online activities and then some activities that we can do perhaps outside with our family members, but also looking at music and some spiritual offerings as well, which is a really great way to connect with each other. So if you have any comments about today's session, please feel free to share those with us. Give us a call if you had a question and you felt like it wasn't answered. By all means, please call our info line. And I know that Beth had it popped up there, but I'll say it for you again: 1-800-611-6345. And again, if you haven't connected with us before and you'd like to receive some, more information or education or support, please call the info line. It's confidential and we provide intentional follow-up as well. So thank you all very much once again for tuning in, and we hope to see you again next Friday. Have yourself a wonderful Friday. And
we are going to leave the chat box open. If
yes.
you have any comments on today's session, if you have any suggestions for future sessions that you would like to see, and as well if you have any questions that you didn't think were answered already. So we'll leave that chat box open for another few minutes. Thank you all very much.
Thank you all. Have a great weekend. Take care.